Long ago, in a world torn apart by fear, fire, and ancient hatred, two realms stood on opposite ends of a wounded land. To the east lay the Kingdom of Ashes, a dark and blazing empire ruled by King Arenda, a man whose heart had grown as cold as the mountains of soot that surrounded his throne. His kingdom was feared across the land, not for its wealth, not for its size, but for the terrifying warriors it raised. Men and women who bent fire as if it were a living creature. Flames curled around their arms, danced across their skin and answered every command they whispered. For centuries, the people of the Ashes lived in war, and war had hardened their hearts until mercy became a forgotten language. To the west, across forests untouched by flame, stood the breathtaking Forest of Light, a place whispered about in stories as old as the wind itself. This forest was protected by the ancient Lyanna clan, a people not built for battle, but blessed with the power to command nature. They could heal with the touch of a hand. They could summon vines with a single breath, and the trees, the flowers, even the wind, listened when they spoke. The Lumina were guardians, defenders of peace, keepers of life. But beneath their gentle nature burned a hatred so deep that even time could not wash it away. Between these two worlds lay a scar in the earth known only as the Rift, a twisted land where one step revealed soil burned black as coal, and the next step showed wildflowers blooming in impossible colors. A reminder carved into the earth itself that fire and nature had once clashed here, and neither side had ever recovered. Children from both kingdoms grew up with one unshakable truth: the people on the other side are your enemies. Prince Kael Fireborn, the feared heir to the Kingdom of Ashes, was a man whose very presence could make the air tremble. Fire obeyed him. It twisted around his arms, rose from his footsteps, and burned with every beat of his heart. But behind his ember-bright eyes, behind the power and the fury, was a loneliness he never spoke of. For his father demanded strength. His kingdom demanded fearlessness, and Kael had become the perfect weapon they wanted. But secretly, quietly, he carried a dream he dared not reveal. A dream of a world where fire didn't just destroy, but warmed, protected, and healed. Deep within the glowing forest of light lived Lyanna Willowheart, chosen guardian of her people. A young woman with eyes brighter than emerald gemstones and wild chestnut hair that flowed like living branches. Nature moved with her. Vines curled playfully around her ankles. Flowers bloomed wherever her footsteps landed. And the wind knew her name. She was loved, cherished, celebrated as a symbol of purity and hope. But Lyanna carried a burden of her own, a duty she did not choose. To protect her homeland from the flames of the Kingdom of Ashes. To her, every was a monster, a being born only to destroy. Until the day she met one. One fateful morning, Kael rode into the rift to inspect a break in the border. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth. Ashes drifted through the air, like dying snowflakes. But someone else was already there. Lyanna stood at the edge of the scorched forest, kneeling beside burned soil, her hands glowing softly as she coaxed life from the ruined ground. And then, their eyes met. Time itself paused. Kael raised his burning fists, fire flaring like a warning. Lyanna lifted her staff, vines twisting around it as it pulsed with living energy. Two worlds, two enemies, two destinies collided in silence. "Leave my forest," Lyanna said, her voice cold as winter. Your forest? Kael smirked, stepping closer. Nature grows wild. No one owns it. You set it on. Fire, she shot back. And you grow it like a cage? He replied sharply. Her anger cracked the air. His heat scorched the soil. Their powers collided, fire spiraling upward. Flowers bursting around her feet, a storm of embers and petals swirling between them. It should have been a battle. But instead, something unexpected happened. Kael saw the pain. Behind her fury, Lyanna saw the loneliness behind his fire. Neither of them struck again. Neither of them spoke. Yet both felt the same whisper rise inside their hearts. They are not what I was taught to believe, and in that single, fragile moment, their entire worlds began to change. Days turned into weeks, and weeks slipped quietly into months. And in that time, Kael and Lyanna found reasons, small reasons, excuses really, to return to the rift. At first, they met only to argue, to challenge one another, to test the truths they had been taught their entire lives. But slowly, very slowly, the argument became conversation. Conversation became laughter. And laughter became long walks down forbidden paths where neither fire nor forests dared to trespass. Lyanna showed Kael how flowers closed their petals at night, as if they were falling into a peaceful sleep. In return, Kael showed Lyanna how fire could dance without burning a warm glow instead of a weapon. She taught him how to listen to the wind. And he taught her how to find strength and warmth. Together, they discovered something profound, that the world was not only divided by flame and root, but also connected by them. They shared their stories, their dreams, their wounds, and somewhere in the quiet moments between, their words. Kael's anger began to soften. Lyanna's fear began to dissolve. And the hatred passed down through countless generations, crumbled beneath a feeling neither of them dared to speak aloud. Something gentle, something terrifying, something undeniably beautiful. Every year, the Forest of Light held a festival where thousands upon thousands of glowing lanterns rose toward the sky, a river of golden stars lifting into the heavens. Lyanna knew she should not invite Kael. It was forbidden, dangerous, a betrayal of her people and her duty. But the heart does not follow rules. When the first lanterns began to rise, Kael stepped from behind the trees, wearing no armor, carrying no weapons, just himself. Lyanna held out a lantern. "Make a wish," she whispered. Kael closed his eyes slowly. Like a man holding something fragile inside his chest. "I wish I had met you." "In a world without borders," he said softly. Lyanna's heart trembled, because her wish was exactly the same. Their lanterns floated upward to lights rising together, two souls rising with them. And when Kael gently touched her hand, the vines around her wrist bloomed. In full flower, her breath caught. His fire dimmed into a warm glow. That night, beneath a sky filled with floating light, their lips met for the first time. Two enemies, raised to hate, but destined to love. But love this strong cannot stay hidden forever. One evening, Lyanna returned home and found her mother, High Guardian, Ilara, waiting for her with sorrow in her eyes. "Fireborn soldier was seen in the rift," Ilara said slowly. Lyanna's heart began to pound. "And I saw flowers growing in the ashes. Your magic." But the final blow came when her mother held up a torn piece of Kael's cloak. Found beneath the lantern tree, Lyanna felt the blood drain from her face. "Have you betrayed your people?" Ilara asked, her voice breaking. Lyanna tried to speak, but fear strangled her words. She said nothing, and that silence was answer enough. Her mother's heart shattered, but as guardian, she did what she must. Lyanna was placed under watch, her freedom stripped away, her world suddenly colder than she had ever imagined. On the other side of the world, Kael faced the same fate. The king had discovered his treason, his forbidden love. Kael was seized, dragged to the Ember Fortress, and bound. With ancient chains forged from magic older than fire itself, his flames were sealed, his power suppressed. His heart, imprisoned, the lovers were torn apart. And as both kingdoms learned the truth, anger erupted like a storm. Whispers turned to shouts, shouts turned to threats, threats turned to marching footsteps. A war fueled not by history, but by a forbidden love, was about to ignite. The news of their forbidden love spread through both kingdoms like wildfire through dry grass. Whispers became accusations. Accusations became fury. And fury became the spark of war. The Forest of Light gathered its guardians, rangers, druids, and nature-born warriors with eyes sharp as falcons and hearts hardened with betrayal. The Kingdom of Ashes summoned its fireborn legions, warriors wrapped in smoke and flame, their armor glowing like molten stone. Two worlds, two armies, marching toward the inevitable. Inside the Ember Fortress, Kael sat bound in ancient chains, chains forged to silence fire. His flames were sealed, his strength stripped away. But his heart still burned for only one person. He whispered her name in the darkness, Lyanna. And deep in his chest, a spark refused to die. Meanwhile, Lyanna was kept under strict guard within the luminous heart of the forest. Her powers were not bound, but her freedom was. She gazed out toward the rift every day, toward the land that once divided them, and now divided her from the man she loved. Her mother watched her with a breaking heart, torn between protecting her people and saving her daughter. On the eve of war, storms gathered in the sky. The earth trembled under the weight of marching armies. Lyanna could feel the forest crying, trees whispering warnings, winds pleading for peace. She knew what she had to do. She waited until nightfall, then placed her palms against the roots of her home. Please, let me go. And the forest, which had raised her, loved her, and trusted her, opened a path. Vines parted, branches lifted. The earth itself stepped aside. Lyanna ran. At the same moment, far across the burning land, Kael felt something inside him snap, a bond pulling him, a voice calling to him. With a roar, his fire ignited. The ancient chains cracked, splintered, and shattered into dust. Kael rose to his feet, breathing like a man reborn, and ran into the night. At dawn, the two armies met in the rift. On one side, a sea of green, nature breathing with each warrior. On the other, a wave of flame, the air shimmering from the heat of the fireborn, one command, one spark, and war would begin. Before either side could strike, two figures emerged from the horizon. Lyanna from the forest, Kael from the ashes. They walked toward each other, step by step, as the world held its breath. When they reached the center of the rift, they took each other's hands. Fire and nature, the two forces that had always clashed, intertwined. Kael pulled Lyanna close. Lyanna lifted her face to him. Their powers surged, green vines spiraling upward, orange flames curling through the air, twisting together without burning. The sky lit up like dawn. A new magic burst from their joined hands, a swirling fusion of life and fire, gentle yet impossibly powerful. The earth beneath them cracked open, not in destruction, but in creation. From the soil emerged a glowing flower, a bloom of fire and petal combined. The first bonfire blossom. Both armies stood frozen. Weapons lowered. Eyes wide with disbelief. For centuries, they believed fire and nature could never coexist. But now, standing before them, were two souls proving otherwise. Kael raised his voice, strong and steady. This war ends here. Lyanna stepped beside him, her voice calm but unshakable. No more blood spilled for a hatred that never belonged to us. As they spoke, the bonfire blossom glowed brighter, a symbol the world could not deny. The fireborn lowered their torches. The forest guardians lowered their staffs. A silence spread through the armies, but this time, it was a peaceful one. Two lovers had changed the world. That night, beneath the lantern tree where their love first blossomed, Kael and Lyanna spoke their vows, not as prince and guardian, not as fire and forest, not as enemies, but as the hearts who had rewritten the fate of an entire world. You were the fire I feared, Lyanna whispered, and the warmth I needed. You were the forest I fought, Kael replied softly, and the home I found. And so, the kingdom of ashes and the forest of light put aside centuries. Oh, hatred! The rift blossomed with vines and embers woven together forever. And the tale of Kael and Lyanna, the two enemies who dared to love, became a legend told for generations. A reminder that sometimes, the strongest magic in the world is simply love.